welcome guys. In this video we're doing a review of the ASUS VG248QE gaming monitor. This is a 24-inch LED backlit display with a widescreen ratio of 16:9. Now with the stand, the entire unit is weighing 12.12 pounds. And in terms of rotation and customization as to height adjustment, you have a ridiculous amount of options. Pivoting left and right, you'll have a wide range of degree, and as you can see, pushing it up or down will adjust the height. There's no notches of any kind. It kind of has its own built-in springs, so it's really easily done. And yes, it does pivot to a portrait type screen, so for those of you that want to do some coding, just for example, I don't know why you're doing it on a gaming monitor, but just want to mention it, you do have that option also available. And yes, I don't want to forget about the most simplistic of monitor adjustments, and that is pivoting up or down, forward or downwards, whatever you want to call it, diagonally. So you do have all these various options available. Now on the back we have various input and output ports. Now looking on the far right from this angle, you notice there's one for a headphone jack and a speaker input. That's because there are speakers on this device, which I'll be demonstrating for you guys later, so you can actually filter that back out to headphones if you want. There's an HDMI port, a DVI port, and a display port. Getting a bit of a tongue twister there, but if you want the 144Hz refresh rate capability, do not use HDMI. In fact, never use HDMI on this monitor if possible, and explain why later on. Of course, there's an AC adapter on the far left. You'll see a little hole is for a Kensington Lock. There's also an included neat little feature at the back of the stand. There's this red clip which is designed for cable management, which is nice and it works pretty well at hiding cables for the most part. Around the entire rim of the base, you'll notice that there's some really tiny writing, which basically has a whole bunch of features that the monitor is capable of, say 3D capability, the refresh rate. You would think that would look kind of tacky with features written on the base etched in permanently. It actually looks pretty nice and subtle the way they did it here. For its overall physical appeal, it is a fairly attractive design, especially with that base, which you have that 3D logo and all that kind of neat features written in that tiny little writing as I demonstrated on the base. The bezels are a little large though. That's kind of a given, especially considering this is a gaming monitor. It has to push a bit harder compared to regular monitors, so not a big deal. Overall, it's pretty attractive. It's got a red and black theme going on, and I have to say it's pretty good for the most part. The one gripe I have though, major one with this monitor, is that it's glossy all over. So this is a huge dust magnet, so expect it to get fairly dusty on the monitor if you're in a dusty environment. Now you will notice that this monitor is rather thick for an LED monitor, and there is some ventilation at the top, but again, this is due to the fact that it is a gaming monitor and has to push a little bit hard than compared to your regular monitor. As a gaming monitor, it should be no surprise that the power consumption is a little bit on the high side for its size, especially considering it's LED, at a watt consumption of 45 watts, whereas regular monitors at the same size tend to consume just over half that amount. Now with regards to the level of detail, this is a 1080p monitor with support of 16.7 million colors. Now in terms of sharpness, it's very sharp, very clear. Now the colors are okay. Now the thing to keep in mind here, this is a TN panel monitor, so for those of you that say heavy photo editors and need extremely accurate colors, you might want to look elsewhere. Now I'm not saying that the colors are horrible on this monitor, it's just that it's designed more for gaming and that high refresh rate, not so much for color and video editing, so you might want to look a little bit elsewhere. Out of the box, the colors are rather dull, so you might need to do some adjustments. Not a major deal. In most environments, this monitor does a pretty nice job of preventing screen glare and light reflection. Now going back to some of the most important details, this is a gaming monitor, so it has a 1 millisecond response time and 144Hz refresh rate. So that 1 millisecond response time for the most extreme first-person players, they'll be needing that extra response time, which will help you just a fraction of a second. And of course that 144Hz refresh rate means that the picture is refreshing 144 times per second. So whether you're playing first-person shooter or a third-person viewing game, such as what I'm playing now, the Shadow of Mordor, when panning left and right, or just even the movement of my character, it is extremely smooth all the time. Going from a 60Hz refresh rate monitor, which is pretty much the industry standard for those of you that are not too tech savvy, and then going over to this one, it is extremely refreshing. In fact, when even on my desktop and just moving my mouse around with the 144Hz refresh rate kicked in on this monitor, I can see just how buttery smooth the mouse movement is. I know that sounds absurd and it might sound like I'm over exaggerating. I'm not. I'm being dead serious. I will never go back to a non-gaming monitor ever. However, to get the full potential of this monitor, I really recommend that you stick with a more powerful graphic card, and of course it must be NVIDIA to get the capabilities of that refresh rate and playing your games at top performance, and yes, even 3D video game playback. So in regards to that 3D capability, yes, this is a 3D gaming monitor which no one really talks about. However, in order to achieve this, you need a NVIDIA graphic card that can support 3D output, and on top of that you need to purchase the NVIDIA 3D glasses. And unfortunately, it is a sold separately device, so it's a bit of an expense you'll have to pay if you really want the ability to play games in 3D, and yes, even watch 3D movies on your computer. However, this is a sold separately device, so I'll be doing a review on the 3D glasses in a separate video. You can find a link to that review in the video description. As mentioned earlier, there are two speakers on this monitor, each at 2 watts, so it's not that powerful, don't expect great results. What I'm going to do now is put the computer volume and YouTube volume at max, while the speakers within the monitor are at 50% volume, so let's get a listen. The only light found on the mouse is the G logo at the top, which is a neon blue color. There's no custom RGB lighting. For those of you that have a need to increase the weight distribution of the mouse, you certainly do have that option available. And this time I'm going to be switching over to putting the monitor at 100% volume. Yes, you can even customize the left and right click buttons. And as for the scroll wheel, when shifting left or right or clicking down on the scroll wheel itself, you won't accidentally scroll. So as you can see, there are speakers indeed in there, but they're not that great. But hey, if you really need to hook up your PS4 or your Xbox or whatever it may be to a monitor and you're desperate, well, this could work for you. The physical control buttons have a very nice placement at the right, just below the monitor. And notice that on the far right is the power button. Right now it's glowing a steady blue, which means it's on and there's a connection for the video feed. If it's blinking, say like a type of orange, that means there's no video feed and it's missing its input. And when it's off, there's no glow at all. So going over the button controls, the first button I'm using right now has some preset color themes and some certain light outputs. Remember, the one that comes out of the box is rather dull, so you might need to play around with the options of it. There is a crosshair built in, so you can actually, if you want to cheat, if you're say in a multiplayer game with hard mode on, there's no crosshair, well, there's one built into the monitor from these 4 to pick. So if you really need to cheat and you're really desperate for that win, because you got nothing else going on in life, no offense, but yeah, you have that option available. Of course, you also have a timer, which you can kind of move over to the top corner. And then of course this is the general functions available, like your color settings, your light output, all the other good stuff, contrast. This is also where you can choose your input selection and of course the volume control. The volume control is not easy to use because you have to go through this menu. It's rather annoying, but again, this is primarily a gaming monitor and not so much a TV. And of course there's a quick button to access the brightness control and the input selection and the power on off button. Be sure to check out the software available for this monitor, as you can actually do certain things like say take other people's color settings. So for example, I went to Reddit and took someone else's color profile settings and imported it and applied it to my monitor. It's not what I liked, I actually fine-tuned it myself, but you do have that option available. So to really achieve the 144Hz refresh rate, you have to do a few things. Do not use HDMI no matter what. You will not get the high refresh rate of 144 Hz. Use DisplayPort or dual-link DVI. In fact, there is a dual-link DVI cable included at the box, so you're pretty much set and ready to go. Of course, your graphic card must support that capability. Furthermore, depending on your situation like myself, I made the adjustment in my NVIDIA graphic card, which is the GTX 980, but then I also had to change the adjustment in Windows settings. So make sure you go into Windows settings and make the adjustment there as well. So to wrap up the review of this ASUS whatever model, because I always forget the model number, it is a superb gaming monitor. Now it does have some speakers built inside and they're pretty poor in terms of volume output. Now I don't really give it a con in that sense because, well, this is primarily a gaming monitor. To be used as a kind of a TV replacement for hooking up your video game console is secondary. It's not its primary purpose, but it's kind of a bonus that you have speakers in there. So the 144 Hz refresh rate is nice and refreshing. You see what I did there? Because it's refresh rate and it's refreshing. No? Okay. But there's not much else to say. I mean, this is a monitor at the end of the day. A sharp one at that, but not some of the best colors you can get, but that's the sacrifice you're making to get that high refresh rate. So I hope you guys found this video useful. Be sure to check out my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links also in the video description. Hit that like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.